Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here for our Smart Water Leak Detection and Control Products webinar. Good afternoon and happy Wednesday. Chris, could you advance the slide for us? I just want to introduce you to Resideo in case you aren't familiar already. We manufacture and deliver Honeywell Home First Alert products, and we are affiliated with ADI. Our brand promise is we help you protect what matters most. Some of our products and solutions, we do serve the whole home. So we have products that fall into these categories: air, security and safety, water, and energy. Today, we're of course talking about our water products, and the guy to do that is Chris Parks. He's our water sales leader in the Western United States, and he has been with us since 2018 and has more than 20 years of experience in plumbing. Chris, thank you so much for being here to take us through this webinar.
Jamie, thanks for the introduction. What I am going to talk about today is our new L-Series leak detection portfolio, but I want to start by just showing everybody everything that we have to offer. So as Jamie had mentioned, I cover the Western United States for the water product family within Resideo. That's made up of two different subcategories. We have hydronic heating products as well as plumbing solutions. And again, that section you see there circled in blue, that's what we're going to go over and train and talk about today. So before we even start talking about it, I want to speak to why this is becoming more and more prevalent in our industry. Leak damage, I think if you were to poll anybody, I think roughly 1 out of every 4 people has either experienced a leak event themselves or know somebody that it's happened to. We've been selling Wi-Fi leak detectors for more than 6 or 7 years, and we've got about 250,000, I believe, connected. Based on the metrics that we got and just some estimations, we estimate that we saved about $2.7 million in insurance claims last year alone, just based on the leak events that we saw with our detectors. Using an average water damage, just some of the standard statistics, that can equate out to roughly $2.4 million or 2.4 million gallons that we saved. Why that's important? The average water damage claim is increasing. This year alone, the average is roughly $12,402, which is a large increase from last year at about $11,650. And that number continues to increase. There's a lot of different market segments that are happening and taking place, but we're seeing in some areas where insurance agencies are starting to require a form of leak detection and shutoff if your home is valued over a certain amount. There's not a ton of consistency on that today. It seems to vary from market to market, but we are seeing that. I want to start off before we really dive into the products and talk about them just with a high-level animated video showing you kind of what our new L-Series products encompass.
The L5 valve from Resideo Brockman easily attaches to the water main, and if the cable sensor detects water, it can automatically shut it off. You can expand your leak coverage by connecting multiple water leak and freeze detectors and placing them near appliances or parts of the home that are prone to water leaks. Then you can set the app to send alerts or enable an automatic shutoff based on location or urgency. It can prevent costly damage and gives homeowners more time to call a professional. Get water leak protection that's easy to install. Learn more at resideo.com/pro/water.
So again, one of the things that I'd like to speak to on this is that we develop and are developing and expanding an entire leak detection and shutoff portfolio. We've had Wi-Fi leak detectors for the last 6 or 7 years, but one of the questions I got asked when I was showing it was, well, this is great, it'll beep and let me know, but what does it do? So we've revamped our line, improved upon some of the products that we've offered, and we're starting with the L5. The L5 is our leak detecting shutoff valve. I'll go into more details on each one of these, but that's essentially the shutoff component of our leak detection line. We also go into the L1, which is going to be a modified version of our old Wi-Fi leak detector. We've made some improvements on that I'll speak to, but it's a battery-operated Wi-Fi leak detector. We also are going to be expanding more. I'm going to give everybody that's on the call a snapshot of what's coming early next year to continue expanding upon this portfolio. And again, diving into this, the L5 is the shutoff component today. It's a very simplistic Wi-Fi shutoff valve. We use a heavy-duty plumbing-rated ball valve that's tied to an electronic actuator on the top. Very easy to components make this up. Each one operates independently, but it's a plumbing valve that everybody knows and trusts in our industry. We make these in sizes 1/2 inch through 1 1/4 inch, and it's going to be powered just with a standard electrical plug. So we got about a 10-foot power cord on that that's going to plug into a standard electrical outlet. Connects to Wi-Fi, no special hubs are required. And we've got a little clip that holds everything together. One of the things that I do want to speak to is when we look at water and leak detection portfolios of all the different products that are in the industry today, there's two main different trains of thought when we look at the solutions. One method is using a flow sensing inside the valve itself. That really limits you to the water main for installation. And when we first spun away from Honeywell to form Resideo, we acquired a company that had that technology. And what we found was the majority of people that were looking to get an installation wanted something that was less cost and more simplistic. So we went back to the drawing board and basically created what customers were asking of us, a very simplistic, easy product. And I'll go into details as we go through this training on what all the different things that it can do. When we look at opening up the L5 after you buy this from one of your distributors, I want to show you what's inside and bring awareness to something that we've already had some calls on. So first off, when you open a box, you're going to see one of our leak detecting cables. I'll go into detail in a little bit on what that is and what that does. And when you pull that off, you're going to see the three main components that make this up. First is going to be the actual valve. Again, we offer this in 1/2 inch through 1 1/4 inch. And then you're going to get your power supply. And then to the left, you're going to see your Wi-Fi actuator. I do want to point out beneath that Wi-Fi actuator in that spot that I have circled in the bottom right, there's going to be a clip that holds the actuator to the valve. We have made an improvement on the packaging by adding some text, which you can see off to the left, to where we're trying to highlight to be aware that that clip is under there. We have had some people that have pulled everything out and thrown the box away and lost the clip. If that happens, you can temporarily rig it up, get a hold of us, and we will set you up. But just, I want to be aware that there is a clip under there. Don't throw that packaging away until you've grabbed that clip. When we look at the product itself, sorry, my slides are sticking here. When we look at the product itself, there's, again, a couple different components on here, but our goal was to make this incredibly simplistic. So I want to go through what each of these different parts do on the valve and what they're going to look like, how they work, etc. Starting from the very far left, you're going to see your power supply coming into it. Right beneath that, there's a port for a leak sensing cable. Again, you saw that in the image right before. It does ship with a 5-foot leak sensing cable. I will show you the different applications you can put this in. This is a product that you can use in various applications. You may or may not use that leak sensing cable tied directly to the valve. So I'll talk about where you'll use it, where you won't, but that's optional as far as the leak cable on the bottom of this. You will see a handle for manual operation. So you do have the ability to walk up to it and actually open and close it by hand, even if there's no power. To the right-hand side, you'll see that push button. So if you press that, you can electronically open and close the valve. That push button is also going to be used during the initial setup. And then again, keeping everything simple, we have 2 LEDs on there. To the left, that's going to be essentially your Wi-Fi signal. If there's nothing lit up, that means it has no Wi-Fi connection. And if you have a blue light, you're going to see that's basically a visual indicator that the Wi-Fi is connected and is talking with our cloud. It also, I believe, during the initial setup process, will turn purple during a couple of the stages, just giving you indication as to what's happening. The key, though, the one to the right of that, is telling you what the valve is doing. So if that valve is showing you a red light on the top, that's indicating that the valve is closed. If it's green, the valve is open. If we move over to the right-hand side, the only other thing that I really want to point out is that retention clip. All that's doing is holding the actuator. When we get to the end of this video, I've got a couple of them here. I'm actually going to show you how all of this connects, and I've got a couple of tips and tricks that we're going to cover as well. When we look at our leak detectors, again, we've been selling our leak detectors for years. I think I'd mentioned earlier, we got about 250,000 of them that have been connected to our app and are in operation today. One thing that I did not speak to previously is when I was showing the L5. The L5 is compatible with both our L1 as well as our existing leak detectors. A couple of the changes that we made and a couple of things that this does, this will sense leaks based on that cable. There's also some sensors on the back that I'll show you next. It also tracks temperature and humidity. So it does more than just leak detection. You can actually put this into, say, a crawl space to be notified if you run into freezing potentials or if you have humidity problems. I actually use this in my own house. I've got a crawl space that has moisture issues, and I keep this down here to let me know if the dehumidifier faults out. So the humidity will rise in that crawl space and let us know that there's an issue with the dehumidifier. We sell these in single packs. We know that a lot of applications will have multiple leak detectors. So we do offer them in kind of a track pack configuration where you buy 3 at once. So by doing that, you save a little bit of money. There's not as much marketing and packaging inside of there. So it's a little bit less cost. It's got a 100 decibel alarm, which for comparative reasons, think of a CO or smoke detector in your house. That's essentially the audible level that you'll see out of this. It does give you an LED light kind of on the face that you can use both for setup and for letting you know what's going on. These also ship with that 5-foot water leak detecting cable. So again, I'll go into the cable in a minute, but we've had some of the revisions that we made. First, we went from 3 AA batteries to 2 AA batteries. The batteries are included in the box. You'll get an estimated 2 to 3 year life out of it before the batteries need to be changed. We also increased the reaction time. Since we redesigned these to really work with that shutoff valve, it will take no more than up to 10 seconds to send a pulse back to start shutting down the valve in a leak event. So very, very fast reacting. And again, we've been doing these for years. It's a proven product for us. Going into some of the specifics on the leak detectors. When you look down here on the sensors, you've got 2 metal dots. That's designed so you can actually take this leak detector and put it onto the ground. So say you put it into a water heater pan or something of that sort. If water ever does come in contact with those 2 sensors at the bottom, it'll sound the alarm and trigger. That being said, I usually recommend to people that you don't put this directly into the pan. If you look to the left, you'll see that mounting keyhole. That's designed so that you can take it and put it into drywall. You could put it in with a sheet metal screw into the jacketing on a water heater or any of the equipment that you're tying into. The reason I always suggest that is, one, we ship it with that water leak detecting cable. 2 reasons I recommend using that. First, if this gets wet, this is not waterproof. So it will sound, it will trigger alerts, and I'll go into the app and show you all of that, but it's essentially going to ruin the device. By using the cable at the bottom, what it's going to do is you can reuse that cable over and over again. And if you put it in a pan, you have a better chance of getting into any of the small leaks. Because I used to work for a distributor. I sold a lot of metal water heater pans. I don't know any of them that actually got installed and were perfectly flat. So there's a chance that this isn't on the low point where the water may puddle. Whereas if you were to use our leak cable, you can wrap it all the way around the pan. And if any part of that cable gets wet, it's going to trigger off. And 2, it can be reused. So if you're doing any work and you spill some water on it, you dry it off and you put it back together. And then our leak cable. We do 5 feet lengths on these now. This is an improvement on some of our olders that were 4 feet long. So we're going to 5 feet to give you a little bit more length. And then if you look at them, it almost looks like a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. These can be extended over and over and over again up to 500 feet. That being said, if you get enough of these to make it 500 feet, at some point it's going to be cheaper. Usually after buying about 3 or 4 of these, it's just cheaper to buy another leak detector and just install that in another area and call it something else. So great product. It can be hooked together. And one of the things that we are doing, again, that shutoff valve does come with one of these. What most people are doing if they put on their water main is they'll actually use that extra cable to make an extra extension. I'll use my own house again as an example. On my kitchen sink, I've got it on the far right-hand side, screwed into the wall. I've got the leak cable that came with it going underneath the disposer, as well as both of the stops. And then I took one more extra cable, hooked it into there, and I ran it out behind my dishwasher in case the dishwasher ever leaks. So you can carry this on as long as you want. Any part of that cable gets wet. Again, want to emphasize it's not just the end. Any part of that cable that's kind of like a shoestring gets wet, it will trigger it off as a leak event. So one of the things that's unique with ours is, unlike some of our competitors that has to be tied directly to the water heater or has to be installed only on the water main, ours can actually go into both applications because of the way that we designed it. So I'm going to speak to a couple of standard installations that we see, as well as some financial opportunities for you as a contractor to look at how you can increase the revenue for your business. If you were to install this on a water main, a couple of the standard spots that you'll install the leak detectors, a lot of times, depending on where you live in the country, that L5 is going to be installed down in the basement or wherever your main water comes into the house. And then we're going to put leak detectors in all the key areas. So if we look at some of the standard areas that we're going to install a leak detector, you're going to see one at, say, the washing machine, where the water heater hoses or the washing machine hoses have a bad tendency of bursting over time because nobody changes those. Could be at the kitchen sink, where you've got the dishwasher. Could be at the water heater. Could be at the kitchen or the master bathroom. There's a lot of different places you can find them. Again, 3 of the most common that we typically see are going to be water heater, washing machine, and the kitchen sink and dishwasher. Another option with the L series, let's step out of residential for a little bit and look at commercial. There's a lot of commercial high rises that have got multiple stories. And the problem with that from a leak detection issue is, let's say you get a flood on the 4th floor. That means that you're going to end up with a flood on the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, and the 1st floor. So a lot of times these high rises, the water damage is a big issue because you not only does it leak at one spot, but it carries all the way down, right? Gravity is going to bring that water down to where it needs to go. So with our leak detectors, we do have the ability of setting up multiple locations inside of our app. So you can set it up for multiple buildings, multiple units, etc., and tie everything together. I usually recommend that try to keep it to less than 100 devices at once. Once you get beyond that, the app does start to get a little bit clunky. We are working on a more commercial operating system, you could say, to take care of this in the future. And then what we see on some of these really large jobs, we've had some projects that we've sold 1,000+ leak detectors to. When you get into jobs of that scope, a lot of times those buildings are going to utilize a prop tech company or property technology company. And what those companies do is they will actually build a web platform or a software service that encompasses not only leak detection, but it's also going to do locks, lights, thermostats, window blinds, you name it. We partner with a lot of these manufacturers. Stratus is probably one of the bigger ones, but there's several of them out there. And what they'll do is they'll charge that either property owner, business, or property manager a cost per unit, but they encompass a lot more than just one product. And then going back to our app, one of the things that we do is we integrate with a lot of third-party companies. So think of Alexa, Brilliant, etc. We integrate all of our products in with that as well. So let's talk about the financial opportunities that you have as a contractor. Now, before I even start, these are elevated prices. I recommend reaching out to your distributor to get an idea of what your price is going to be. I also want to highlight, since this webinar is being recorded, it is currently October of 2023. Prices changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years, so I'll go ahead and throw a verbal date stamp into this presentation. So 2 different applications I discussed. Water heater and water main. Those are the 2 most common that we see our products being used. First off, if you look at the water heater application, there's not a lot of product that you need to purchase. You're going to get the shutoff valve. More than likely, it's going to be a 3/4 inch, and you're going to get 1 extra cable, because more than likely that 5-foot cable is not going to be long enough to get you all the way down to the water heater pan and get you a little bit of distance inside of that. So we're looking a little bit less than $250 material cost. If we just estimate we're going to double that, the sell price would be around $500, meaning your material profit is $254. But one of the things that a lot of people forget to take into account is your labor cost. The neat thing with installing this on a water heater is there's not a lot of labor involved. You're already cutting the top of the heater up. All of that's there. You've got a couple of female threads on our valve that you'll put some adapters to. You don't even have to hook it up to the internet unless you want to. So I'm estimating installation about 15 minutes when you're installing it on a water heater. So if we back that out, assuming labor costs, obviously this is nationwide, so, and actually Canada's as well, that varies dramatically from market to market. But if we just assume $150 billable labor hour rate, you're looking at a profit opportunity of about $216 per installation with water heater. So just to throw some metrics on what you're looking at, let's say you install 200 water heaters a year, and 1 out of 4, you end up getting the L5 installed. That's a yearly profit opportunity of almost $11,000. So not bad for just offering a quick little $500 upsell for a connected solution leak detection offering for a water heater. That being said, I think it's better to install on the water main. It's going to have a lot more costs associated with it. So if we look at putting it on the water main, let's assume we need a slightly bigger shutoff valve. So we're going to go with the 1 inch in this example. So material cost is a little bit higher. And let's assume we're only going to use 3 leak detectors. So our material subtotal comes out to about $450. Let's say you've got a target sell price of $1,500. Your material profit's a little bit over $1,000. Now, the labor cost on this is going to be significantly more than on a water heater because you're going to have to cut into the water main, drain part of it down. You're going to have to connect it to the internet, and you're also going to have to connect your L1 leak detectors to the internet. So I'm estimating about an hour and a half install, about $150, that same billable labor cost. Your profit opportunity comes out to about $824. So the hit rate on this is not as successful as it is with water heaters because of the larger cost to the homeowner. Let's say you quote out 600 of these a year, and you can offer this out anytime you're fixing a leaky faucet, there's a drain that leaked, etc. Let's say you've got a less than 10% success rate on what you offer. So in this example, I'm using 8. We still come out to about 50 of the L5 installs. That's a yearly profit opportunity of $40,000. So it's a nice option to throw out to your owners. And again, the advantage of our solution is it's just a Wi-Fi ball valve. We don't have all the flow metrics that cause nuisance callbacks. You will install it, you'll get it set up, and then that's it. And I'll talk about the app. There's going to be a lot of different ways you can include yourself into your homeowners or end users business as well. So what I'd like to do now is just kind of pause and show a real world demo on how this actually functions. Okay, so one of the other things I want to speak to is Wi-Fi. I mentioned that our products are Wi-Fi and they use our app. We have one Resideo app for all of the HVAC and plumbing products. It's literally called Resideo. Those of you that have been using our thermostats, you're probably already familiar with it, but this ties all of our Wi-Fi products together. So with Wi-Fi, the advantage of using Wi-Fi in our products is you don't have to have any kind of extra gateways or hubs. So some of our competitors use a different type of wireless transmission. We decided Wi-Fi was the way to go. We've got a lot of experience with that from our thermostats, but there's a lot of misinformation out there on Wi-Fi. So I'm going to give everybody just a kind of a quick understanding on how this works. We selected 2.4 gig radios for our products. Now, if you look at any modern routers, they're all going to be marked as 5 gig. Some of them nowadays are actually moving into 6 gig routers. But what you're looking at is those 5 gig routers are also backwards compatible with 2.4, meaning they're going to broadcast both a 2.4 and a 5 gig bandwidth out of them. 5 gig is newer. Newer doesn't always mean better. It depends on the application. So if you're looking at Wi-Fi and you look at a 2.4 gig bandwidth, it's basically shallow, which means you can't transmit data as fast, but you can transmit it at a much longer distance. So you get a better chance of having strong connectivity if you use that lower bandwidth. If you go to 5 gig, you can transmit data significantly faster, but the distance is cut. It doesn't penetrate walls as well, and a lot of other things. So we don't care about speed because we're not displaying 4K video on this. All we care is being able to make a strong, reliable connection to our cloud service. So we're doing 2.4. When you get into homes, Wi-Fi is a drastically, rapidly evolving computer technology, but 2.4 is built into every modern router. So even if they say they've got a 5 gig router, I promise you it's got 2.4. Our products can do what's called band steering, to where it basically links one network name. It'll transmit both 2.4 and 5. The router should be smart enough to identify what our products are using and connect with no issues. Now let's talk about the app a little bit. When we go into the app, again, some of you are familiar with the app already because of our thermostats. All of our connected products will show up in the app. When you first download the Resideo app, we've got an image of it there on the left-hand side, kind of a red background with a house. You'll be presented with an option to add a device after you set up an account. When you click on add a device, it's going to show everything we've got. And the two circles I show there encompass our portfolio on water leak products. So we've got the L1 at the top. We have the new product I'll discuss briefly that's coming next year, and then our old water leak detectors that we've had for years. And then the L5 is down at the bottom. I'm going to walk through a sample L5 shutoff. I don't have all of the screenshots, but I'm going to show you what it looks like and what the app interface does, so that when you're setting it up, you know how to work it. And if the homeowner has any questions of you, you'll know what they're looking at. So after we add the device, in this example, again, I'm doing the L5, which is down at the bottom. The first thing it's going to ask you for is to choose a location. Now, I want to point out, because I've seen a couple of people do this incorrectly. It's not the location of where you're putting the product in the home or building. It's asking for the physical location of where it's being installed. Most everybody is going to be installing these in a single location. In other words, one house, one home. If that homeowner has multiple homes, they could have a Colorado house and a Texas house. So two different homes. Do not set up different locations if it's all going in one home, because the products will not see each other. You can name it on the next screen after you select the home. This is where you're going to name the product. You can choose one of the predetermined names that we've got in there, or you can call it whatever you want. So we've got more of them selected for the leak detectors, but on the L5, we got about 5 or 6 different names that have already been called out, or you can call it whatever you want. To the right-hand side, that's giving you kind of a snapshot once it's set up of what you're looking at. And the neat thing with our app is it will literally walk you through all of the steps. So you can pull the install manual out if you want, but the app is going to walk you through, press this, do this, plug this in. It does all of it, kind of like most of the modern technology products that are out there today. The screen on the right after you get it installed is what you're going to be looking at with various leak detectors, as well as the water main shutoff at the bottom. And in this example, it's showing that it's closed. If you were to click on that and go into it and open it, I'll show you what those screens look like. So again, for this next set of screens, I'm going to show you what happens when you actually click on that water main after it's installed. With any new product, it's going to automatically bring you up a tutorial. So whether you reinstall the app, install it on a different phone, it's going to walk you through every time so you know what all the buttons do. But I'm going to walk through the common stuff right out of the gate. So when you're looking at that screen, that second app image right there, that's showing you that the valve is closed. That image below has it grayed out, showing that it's a visual representation of closed. And right below that, it says online, meaning it's connected to the internet. If you click that button in the middle, it's going to go to valve opening or valve closing, vice versa. It'll give a little bit of time. The app takes a little bit longer to update than the product physically does. Once it's done opening up, it goes to green to let you know it's open. It tells you it's open above. And again, it's still online. Now, the magic of the L5 shutoff valve is not only that it can talk just to itself, but that it'll talk with all of our leak detectors. So on the bottom of that main screen, you'll see a leak protection icon. When you click on that, it's going to populate every single one of the leak detectors that's been set up previously. The other thing is you can do it vice versa. So you can install the L5 first, and then every leak detector will basically, if I remember right, it tells you that it sees a shutoff valve. Do you want it to connect to that? It will see all of them, and you have the ability to enable and disable which leak detectors shut that valve off. So again, this is a snapshot of my own house. I've got one of the leak detectors at the kitchen sink. I got one in the laundry room. I got one at the refrigerator for my ice maker line. And then I've got one at the water heater. I also have one at my sump pump. My sump pump is down in my crawl space. Again, I got some issues in my house that are unconnected to this. But what I've done is I've actually taken one of the leak detectors and wrapped that cord about 2/3 of the way up at the top of the sump basin. So that in case that sump pump ever fails, it's going to go up, hit that rope, and basically start sounding an alarm as well as send me notifications. I don't need to shut the water off to my house when that happens. That's there to let me know that my sump pump has failed. So I've disabled that so that if that goes off, it's not going to shut the water off to the house, but it will still let me know that there's a leak at that sump pump. But if any of those other 4 detect a leak, it will shut the water main off automatically. Couple of other things I want to point out. If you go to the top right, we've got that little gear icon. That's the settings for the individual product. So in the water main, that L5 shutoff, it's going to bring up a list of a couple other options. The maintenance cycle is one that I recommend paying attention to. So when you go into the maintenance cycle, you have the ability to program on a couple of different frequencies how often you want that valve to just turn off and turn back on. The reason we recommend doing that is if you were to put this on your water main, again, speaking for my own house, I had a gate valve on my water main. So when I went to close that, I discovered it didn't fully shut the water off. Got close, but not all the way. Some areas of the country have got very, very bad water. And if you don't exercise the valves, meaning open and close it at various times, they'll seize up. Since we need this thing to be able to open and close and overcome the torque on the motor, we need to make sure that that stays free. So we've got different settings in there. You can turn it off if you want. In my house, I set it for monthly. So the first day of every month at 1 a.m., it closes that valve for a couple of seconds and opens it back up. It just makes sure that nothing's going to bind and seize inside of there. Down below on the settings screen, you've also got an option for manage alerts. You've got a couple of different ways to be notified by this. First off, you've got the app notification. So if you open the valve, close the valve electronically, it'll send you notifications. If it loses internet connection or loses power, it sends notifications to let you know. You can also set up emails, and you can set up multiple email recipients. So the neat thing with this is, let's say you are offering service contracts to your customers. You can set up that not only they get their notifications, but you could add your dispatch line into that. So now it's lead generation if anything detects any kind of unknown usage. So if you see the valve closing or if there's a leak event and it shuts it down, you will actually be notified as well, but they do have to include you. That's something that they would have to agree to. But they can set up for spouses, kids, neighbors, etc., for different email notifications. When we go into the L1 leak detectors, it's a similar interface. But again, I had mentioned on our leak detectors that they actually track temperature and humidity. So if you'll look here, I actually took these screenshots of my house a couple of days ago. If you'll look here on the temperature, the top blue line is showing the highest temperatures recorded during those days. The bottom, kind of that gray graph, is showing the lower temperatures recorded each day. If we click on the humidity button, it'll go over and it'll show you the same kind of trend line for 30 days, showing you the humidification trends that you're seeing. So I can tell you it's started to get a little bit cold. The furnace has kicked on a few times. It's starting to dry the house out a little bit. Down in the bottom left of that main screen, since our L1s and our old Wi-Fi leak detectors are using batteries, it will give you a battery remaining mark on the bottom. Since we are using this as a safety device, we've done everything we can think of to make sure you know if those batteries start to go out. You can look up the battery remaining life as far as an estimation on the screen. It will also start to send you app and email notifications when the batteries start to go low. If you ignore all those, you will get the wonderful 100 decibel beep periodically, kind of like a CO in a smoke detector, letting you know that you've got low batteries on those leak detectors. If you go into the settings and you go into manage alerts, I mentioned that you can use this for both temperature and humidity in addition to leak protection, right? So if we look at this, I've got the option to do temperature and humidity alerts. You can enable or disable either one or both. You can set different ranges. So in this example, I've got 45 degrees for a minimum, 85 degrees for a maximum. If it goes outside of that, either colder than 45 or above 85, it'll send me notifications. Same with humidity. If it drops below 20% humidity or above 70% humidity, it'll send notifications. And just like on the L5, I can set up whatever email contacts I want. So it'll always default to myself, but if I wanted to include my spouse, my kids, my plumber, I could put all of that in there to let them know that there's something going on. Now, a couple of tips and tricks I am going to bear with me here. I'm going to take my background off so that everybody can see what I'm showing. And I want to go through a couple of things that I do see periodically. So first off, actuator and valve orientation. I have taken a couple of calls to where they're backwards, meaning that the valve or the actuator thinks it's open, but the valve is actually closed. That typically happens from somebody taking the actuator off and playing with it and putting it back on in a different orientation. There's an easy way, once this is plumbed in, to figure out which direction the valve should be. And I'm going to try and hopefully get this to focus. And actually, I have it closed right now. So if you look, this line, you almost see like screwdriver stops at the top of that. That's going to show you the orientation that it is. So right now, since it's going perpendicular to the valve, that means I'm closed. So my valve orientation, my actuator orientation also needs to be closed. If I get them backwards, it'll just get them backwards. But there's an easy fix. If they're backwards, you just put this in the same direction as the valve. You put it on, and then you either open or close it. So it's kind of like reversing a handle on a ball valve. The handle on here, I want to bring awareness to. You do need to depress it before you turn it. So to close it, you're going to press it and turn it clockwise about 90 degrees. What's that doing is it's disengaging the gears inside the unit. So if you go and just try to twist it, it'll have resistance. If you push it down, it'll go freely. Now, when you first set this up, just like any ball valve, that if you were going to go buy, it's going to be very stiff on the initial turn. Once it's installed, it's operated a few times, it'll be just like any other ball valve that's installed in the house. The clip installation, again, here's our clip. It just slides right on top. Again, it doesn't need a lot of force. All you're looking for is to make sure that the clip is going to hit both sides of that actuator on the top. If this is bent, just feel free to bend it back a little bit. Again, you don't need a lot of force. The gears mechanisms are going to attach inside of here. This is just there to hold the two pieces together. I have had a couple of people. Yes.
Are we supposed to be seeing your piece of equipment right now?
Yes. Can you not see?
Nope. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, thank you. How about now?
Not yet.
I don't know that it's going to redo the background then.
We
I
see
do
it in
I am
the
seeing it.
video.
Chris.
Okay.
Oh,
Good.
you are? Okay. All right. Sorry for that, guys. So let me just go back a little bit. There's a couple things that I wanted to point out. So on the actuator and valve orientation, if you'll look here on the actual valve body, you see that little screwdriver spot. If it's going perpendicular, it's closed. So if I were to show you that valve is closed. If I take it and twist it the other direction, I'm going to twist it to open now. So open, that valve is showing essentially the stops going the same direction. And if they are backwards, when you could put them together, they basically need to be the same. So valve handle perpendicular means it's closed. Valve handle parallel means that it's open. So they should both match the same orientation. The handle, again, just pushing down on the top here disengages the gears. 90 degrees clockwise will close it, and then pulling it 90 degrees counterclockwise will open it. The product does have a button right here that I showed. You do need to press that with some force. These are not soft buttons, and it's the same for the L1. So the problem is that I've had some people is they're just trying to push it real lightly. You really need to give that button some pressure to get it to actually register. So just be aware, if you're pressing it on setup and nothing's happening, press it a little bit harder. The other call I've had a couple of times is on the power up time. These are smart devices. We've got Wi-Fi radios in them. There's electronic circuitry inside of here. They take a little bit of time to power up. Not much, but 20, 30 seconds potentially. So with this, when you first put power to it, same with this, when you first put batteries to it, give it 20, 30 seconds before you try to start setting it up. It might act like the batteries aren't working. You just need to give it a little bit of time to power up. And then app setup, the location versus product name. I spoke to that a little bit. Again, when you're setting it up, because I've had several people call me on this, when it asks for location, it's asking about the physical location that's installed in, so the house. The product name is where most people will put the product location name. So kitchen sink, bathroom, etc. And then a little tip on the cables. Again, here's kind of showing the flexibility of this. Again, I mentioned it's kind of like a shoestring. When these get wet, it'll trigger it within about a second. There's basically a wire that goes through these. It's not a bad idea if you're doing a lot of these to keep an extra 1 or 2 on your truck. The reason is if this gets wet, you can reuse it over and over again, but it has to dry out first. So if you're out doing some work under a kitchen sink and you spill some water on this, run out to the truck, grab a dry one, put it back in, and then put the wet one back on your truck to be used another time. So just kind of speeds the process up a little bit. And then in summary, the unique thing with ours is you have multiple application uses. You can use it, the 2 most common being the water heater. You essentially just install it on the cold inlet to the water heater, or put it on the water main and pair it with any of our Wi-Fi leak detectors. There's a lot of revenue opportunity in a manner that you're not going to have nuisance callbacks. So being a homeowner, I can tell you, if my water heater were to start leaking and cause damage in my house, and you came to replace it and told me that for $500, I could basically get a smart connected leak detector to let me know if it ever leaks again in the future, or for another $1,000 or so, put it on my water main and protect the entire house. That's a pretty easy sell for me. And then ease of use. It's simple. I've even got a couple of people that use these as Wi-Fi ball valves. So, because essentially you don't have to put all the devices together. The Wi-Fi leak detectors work by themselves. The shutoff valve works by itself, or you can link them together. It's kind of up to you on whatever you want to use for your system. Now, again, thanks everybody for attending. I always like giving little snapshots of what's on the horizon. This is not publicly announced yet, so a little teaser for everybody on here, but we are going to have a hardwired version of the leak detector coming out early next year. Same principles, Wi-Fi uses the same leak detecting cable, but instead of using batteries, it's going to be hardwired. So it's going to be a 24-volt circuit. It will give you a normally open, normally closed relay that you can use to enable and disable equipment. One of the most common applications I think we're going to see it in is on the forced air side for those secondary condensate pans. I grew up in Tennessee. I can tell you on more than one occasion, all of our furnace, we had a furnace up in the attic, and that secondary condensate pan overflowed more than once. And we found out because the ceiling would start turning colors. So I think it's a great idea because not only will it shut the equipment down as a secondary safety, but the homeowner and yourself potentially will get notifications as well. So more to come on this. We'll have more information in the beginning of the year. And for those of you that are not aware, we have put a lot of energy into our training platforms. So we have a web portal and a whole platform called Resideo Academy. I've got the web link up there at the top. You can also download our Resideo Academy app. It's available both on Google Play and the Apple app stores. You can take a lot of our different products, whether it be forced air, plumbing, hydronics, security. We have online videos that you can access and take at your own pace. And it is free to utilize. That being said, I'm going to open this up for questions. Before I do that, one thing I didn't speak to, our L5 Wi-Fi leak detector, it comes in both a single pack where you're going to get the shutoff valve by itself, as well as a starter kit that includes one Wi-Fi leak detector. We do sell the L1 by itself. We also sell it in a 3-pack, and we sell those 5-foot cables by themselves as well. I've got a QR code here that'll take you to our web portal where you can learn more about both of these products. And with that being said, I'm going to open this up to questions.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much. I know that Mike's been answering a lot of the questions live, but we do have a few more new ones coming in. The first one, can I use this on a 1.5-inch or 2-inch water main?
So that's a great question. So we do offer this 1/2 through 1.25 inch. I have all of the engineering data and we can provide this to you. If you were to install ours on an 1.5 inch line, it would work just fine. You're going to get virtually no pressure loss through it. Again, I've got the CV data that we can send off to you, but it is a full port ball valve. Your flow restriction is going to be virtually nothing on 1.5 inch. 2-inch is a different story. You're going to start reducing the flow a little bit too much at max capacity on 2-inch. So one thing I didn't speak to at all is you do have the ability of putting two of these in parallel. So in those applications, what you can do is split off with 2 1/4 inch lines and bridge it back together. So basically install them in parallel, put an 1/4 inch on each side, and basically tie all of that together. So if any of the leak detectors detect moisture, it'll shut both of the valves down at the same time.
Okay, we have another question that just came in. Can the L5 shut-off valve be installed outside?
Certain markets, we get those questions a lot. There's only a couple of them, but we have some very warm climates that I will probably want to be in about 3 months. It is not outdoor rated, meaning it is not UV plastic and it is not waterproof. So at this time, it is not rated for outdoor use. That being said, most of those jobs still have the ability to tie into them in the garage, or you can still use it on a water heater, just not a whole home solution.
Okay, and another question. Can I use the L5 shutoff as just a Wi-Fi ball valve without all the leak detection functions?
That's a good question, and that's actually something we've been getting more and more of lately. So yes, it is technically a leak detecting shutoff valve, but at the heart, it is a Wi-Fi ball valve. So if you wanted to use this as a Wi-Fi ball valve so that you would have remote access, I've had a couple of people give me different examples they want to use it for. I have a plumber that's doing some high-end water filtration products, and he has about 6 different valves, and it's become to a point to where he has to go to the jobs, open some, close some, do the others. He's actually offering it now so that he can, or planning to offer it so that he can just from his house or his shop, go in there and essentially automate it for the homeowner. So yes, you can use it as a essentially a Wi-Fi ball valve. From the app, when you go into it, it'll give you the option to turn it on and off. So as long as you have Wi-Fi coverage, yes, it'll work fine for that.
Okay, one other question. Where can I purchase these?
Good question. This is a pro product, so you need to go to one of your plumbing or HVAC distributors to get a hold of this.
Okay. We had a lot of questions answered in the chat. I don't know if you want me to read some of them out loud. Mike's been answering them, but they may be useful to everybody else on the call as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay. Does the leak sensing cable come longer than 5 feet? The answer is it is available in 5-foot lengths, but can be daisy chained together up to 500 feet.
Yep, and just to add a little bit to that, yes, you can. I'm going to grab one more. I can kind of show how they connect. So they literally just connect together. So now I've made this one a 10-foot cable. That being said, once you get, I mean, just when you get with your distributor and get some pricing on this, you'll find that once you get about 3 cables, which is going to give you essentially up to 15 to 20 feet, it becomes more cost effective just to buy another L1 leak detector. So you can extend it up to 500 feet. We'd be happy to sell you all the cables to do that. But usually once you get to about more than 3 extra cables, it's cheaper just to buy another leak detector that comes with another cable and set it up.
Okay, we just got another question just now. Can they be tied into your central alarm system?
So that's a loaded answer, to be perfectly honest. Our products today are Wi-Fi. We have a number of different integrations that we work with, and that's continuing to expand. That's actually partly the reason that we quit making printed literature on all the different integrators that we work with, because it's constantly changing. As of today, I think our security integration is somewhat limited. However, I know that we have a lot of security integration with Brilliant, and Brilliant has added both the L1 and the L5 into their integration. So yes, you can, with a big asterisk behind it. We need to verify to work with whatever system you're talking about.
Okay, and I'm going to read some of the answered questions. How many sensors can you link in the automatic shutoff valve? Currently, we state up to 30 detectors per valve. The next question is, oh, go ahead, Chris, go ahead.
That is true. However, you can exceed that. The reason we put some limitations on there isn't necessarily that you can't connect more. The user experience on the app will start to get a little clunky. It's a lot of scrolling to get through there, but physically, I'm pretty confident you can connect a lot more than 30. because we've done some commercial systems with more. It's just an app experience that we try to put kind of an unwritten rule of, let's try to keep it under 30. That being said, we are working on a more commercial platform. I can't go into details about it at this point, but next year we will have something that will allow significantly more products to be linked together in a more, really those are more commercial applications.
Okay, another question. Can it be placed before the meter regulator? It says the answer is yes. The valve is rated up to 300 PSI.
Yep. Best practice is to install it after your pressure reducing valve, though. Typical, let's say, layout for water entry going into a home or a business is going to, and it varies market to market, but a lot of times you'll have your water meter out at the street, sometimes in the home, and then it'll go into a backflow preventer, if there's a backflow preventer, and then into a pressure reducing valve. We recommend they go after the pressure reducing valve, but also understand that every market is a little bit unique, and it to you know, the rating on it, we are rated over 300 pounds, so it can, but we still recommend putting it after the pressure reducing valve if possible.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have a sales counter displays that are intuitive to help promote and sell the product? The answer is we'll have displays available soon. As counter displays, please contact your Resideo manager for details. I think that's my last question I have in here. Let's see.
There is one that I actually see came up a couple of times. So there's a couple questions in here about a monthly fee. As of now, we have no plan of implementing any kind of fee. It's the same app that we use with our thermostats, and there is no cost. So yeah, that's one of the advantages of our products is, again, kind of emphasizing that simplicity. It's a free app for the homeowner. They can get notifications. You can install it. You don't have to worry about callbacks. And some of our competitors that have monthly fees, I know that they've had a lot of people that have quit using them just because they're getting overwhelmed with monthly fees. So the advantage of that is that it's going to, you know, that they're going to keep it connected. So what good is a shutoff valve if you don't pay the service and it doesn't work?
Okay, and we have one more question that just came in. How many L1 leak detectors can be paired with the L5?
So that's that same question that we had earlier.
We did, okay.
I'd like to leave that open-ended because commercially, you get into a different ballgame. I mean, literally, we've got a couple commercial projects that have over 1,000 leak detectors on them. Our software and our app is really designed more for the residential and light commercial solution. Again, we are working on a commercial app, but today it's really more residential and light commercial. Most homes, from my experience in talking with contractors that are installing these, the average home is getting about 3 or 4 leak detectors. I do have a couple of people that are doing higher end homes and just want extra levels of protection, and we'll put in somewhere between 7 and 10. Getting up to 30, that again, we use as kind of a dry line in the sand, is very unusual for most applications. And once you get into those bigger applications, a lot of times those property managers are looking at doing more than just the leak detection line. So we can do it with our app. They'll be capable of getting notifications, but from my experience, once we start getting over that, you can use our hardware and it'll tie into those, we call them prop tech, but it's basically those software by solution companies that will design a full connected portfolio for that property manager. And a lot of times they're encompassing more than just leak detection and shut off. They're going to incorporate locks and a lot of other things as well.
Okay, I think that may conclude our questions. Let me just double check here. I don't think I see anything else in there. Okay, just let everybody know at the conclusion of this webinar, you'll receive a quick survey and an email thanking you for attending our webinar today. By tomorrow, you'll be receiving a secondary email with a link to the webinar recorded version in case you want to share it out or reference it back. It'll be available to you on our YouTube channel. Otherwise, I really want to thank you for all for spending the afternoon with us, taking some time to learn more about our products. And thanks to Chris Parks, our speaker today. We appreciate your time and thank you for choosing Resideo.